Hello, good morning. Hope everyone is doing well. So today I found some time to do a little bit more to the Hilux. So today we're de-rusting the shock absorber brackets that are rusted through and broken away. I'm going to be welding those back on. You can buy brand new brackets. You don't have to try to recycle what I'm doing. It's probably a bit stupid really what I'm doing, but it saves probably about £100 if I recycle what I've got. We've had some discussion about this, and I'm going to try to do it on a shoestring bad budget. Bear in mind the truck itself is almost 20 years old. It's just shy of 300,000 miles on the clock, so I don't want to be chucking loads of money at it. So like I say, we're just going to, fortunately it's not too bad. This bit here has got all the original paintwork on it, so some bits might not need too much work. Some bits will need a bit more, but yeah, so de-rusted these as much as I can. And then just a case of pushing these down, tacking them in place and then welding them back up. So I'm just about to disconnect the batteries, get the welder out, and we'll go from there. Right, so we're tacked into place. Also, I've still got quite a lot to build up. I'll have to cut strips of metal out, I think, and so I can get it in there properly. This side's slightly better. I've got a little bit more I can work on this side. But of course, you've got the wiring that might get in the way a bit, but that's alright. I've got to repair that anyway, it's been completely mullered. If you hear a young child's voice in the background, it's because my daughter is up here with me, right down the far end there at the minute. She insisted on accompanying me today. So if you hear any little voices calling out daddy, that's what that is. Alright, I'm going to cut out some strips of metal. Put the proper welding gloves on, and then see if I can do a better job. Right, well I've about done the welding I wanted to do. It's actually come out better than I was expecting it to. This side, well both sides really. This side went really, this is probably the better side, there's a bit more meat left, so I was able to just put my plates in, weld around it. This side, hello madam. This side was a bit more rotten, so I ended up putting another piece of angle iron in to act as basically a top hat. So that's all that done. The only other job I'm going to quickly do since the welder is out is these top hats that drop down. They're only tin, so I'll do a quick spot weld, and then that'll be that little job jobbed. And then
so is that cooled down?
Push it back. Yeah, it has cooled down now. Yeah, no, it has cooled down. Yeah, so I'll spot weld that, and then we'll park it up. That is doubling up as a play area today for you, isn't it?
Daddy, has that cooled down?
Yeah, no, everything's cooled down. Don't touch it because that'll be sharp. Right, and I shall quickly do this. Right, we're about there now. So the shock absorber tin dust covers are now welded back into place. Managed to do it without causing too much damage to the rubber bushes. Oh, this ain't reusable, are they? No. Unfortunately, these snips seem to be quite blunt. Right, okay, well, the wiring has been pulled away. For the moment, I've literally just chucked it all in the back there, just for the moment. I'm not really too sure exactly how this wiring, because it runs up here, which you expect. But I would have expected it to carry on up under the cabin, but it doesn't. It comes across here, across the top of the fuel tank, and drops down to the diff. I'm not really too sure where it goes after that, so I'm not too sure where it really gets its power. You've got this little wire here. I can't believe it gets all this power from that one wire, surely, but don't know. But yeah, so it's all stripped back. I'm going to go and put a mask on, get a bit better covered up, and then I'll start cleaning this off. The only slight downside to doing it like this is it's raining currently, otherwise I'd be tempted to do it outside, because of course the only slight issue is, well, it's not really an issue, is I'm going to get that covered in dust, but that's alright. It'll give me an excuse to clean it again, I guess. Right, okay, so we're part way along. It was actually progressing a lot quicker than I thought it was going to, and I'm actually quite happy with how the majority of this is turning out. It's not actually that bad. It's mostly just surface rust. It's not really anything that bad. I'm going to go over this again a little bit, but it's not that bad at all, really. What I am going to do though, so I started cleaning up around the back here. It's particularly crusty, but I'm going to drop this tow bar off because I've got a load of rust jacking in there. So it's only 3 bolts either side. I brought my impact guns up with me today, so I'm hoping I can undo those or snap them off. I don't really care which. Drop that out the way, and then I can get rid of that rust jacking. It might make life slightly easier getting around it. Not that it's difficult, there's plenty of space at the minute. And then I could even potentially even take this tow bar away and clean it up at leisure another time. Right, so I've got my little outfit set out. One thing I can never understand with some of these tool sets is the size of the sockets. So I've got like 17, 19, 21, 23. I've never once used the 23 for anything. Of course, these are 22, so they're a bit slack, but I'll use those. But I don't think I've ever used a 23 for anything. I really don't know why they bothered putting a 23 and not a 22 or even a 24. But there you go. Right, good. So, there you go. So now, well, where's my torch? Right, if I bring a torch over, get a better idea of what I was talking about. So, hold on. It's all rust. Right. Right, so I decided I've cleaned these up as much as I can with them on the chassis. I decided, for the sake of just 3 more bolts, I might as well take this this plate off on each side as well. Since I might as well try and do as thorough a job as possible whilst I'm here, I suppose. So yeah, we'll do that quickly. That's not bad. It's actually got a captive fitting on that one. That this one has. This one might be a bit more tricky. It goes right through the chassis. It might be all right. Bad. Yes, it goes right through the chassis. It's even got a proper little spacer and everything for it. I need to do the underside of these beams as well, so I just want to get a coat on there just so what I've done doesn't start going back the other way. I was pleasantly surprised with these cross beams. I was expecting these to be much worse. Right, so this is where we are at the minute. So I've done majority of the top and the sides. It's just a fiddly little bit now, so I've got to get right into the crevices here on both sides. I've got to get right underneath. So obviously I've not bothered touching that with paint, but the bits that I've done that I'm relatively happy with, I've put I've just chucked a thick shellac of paint onto it just to preserve it. But I'm actually pretty happy with how that's come out so far. So like I said, I just need to give some more attention to this side. I need to take the wheels off so I can get to the underside of the chassis a bit better. I need to do a couple of fragile pieces. This one's cleaning up and painting. So yes, that'll be what I'll be doing next. I'm quite happy with that so far. Right, I hope everyone's doing well still. It's been about a week since I painted this and pushed it back in the corner. In the meantime, I worked out that there was actually meant to be a body mount in there. I can't remember if I said there definitely was or wasn't. I remember I was not sure, but I found out there was meant to be a body mounting. So ground that all back. I went on good old eBay. I've got a pair of weld-on mountings. So that's my little job for this afternoon. Go weld those on. I've got a pair of those. And also, what I hadn't appreciated was this that fuel filler. The bracket is actually part and parcel of the fuel filler, so I went ahead and found one of those on eBay as well. So up on here, give a mess, I've got new fuel filler. So just about do that. I've also been away and painted the drop down plates for the tow bar, which is laid down over there with the rest of it. So I'm just about there in terms of getting it prepared to weld up. So I'm just going to have a little bit of a finalise. But yeah, hopefully that should look alright once that's done. Got to be a little bit careful on this side because I'm welding right next to the fuel tank. And I've got some brake lines here as well. I mean, they're metal brake lines, but I don't really want to get that close, so I might try and dig this out and move those out of the way. In fact, they're not even being held currently. I must have picked away, so that's right. I can wedge something there to give myself a little bit of breathing space. So yeah, it's coming along alright actually. I'm quite happy with how it's coming along so far. So I'll get the welder out and we'll see about welding those up. Right, that's about there now. I ended up finding an old bit of a trailer longboard and bending that. That's how I wanted it. And, so that's after that. So yeah, it's not too bad. I'm pretty happy with those. I can't obviously be 100% certain they're in the right place, but they're where I feel they should be. Worst case scenario, if they're not in quite the right place, I should better just manipulate the truck body when it goes back on. So that's that bit done. So now it's going to be ripping this out and putting the replacement of that, putting that replacement on. For the sake of £20, I wasn't about to mess around trying to rescue that. That was literally $19.99 off of eBay. So I thought, well, can't go far wrong with that, can I? So that'll do. Right, that looks a lot better now. That looks a lot better. Yeah, that looks good. There's quite a large hole behind this bolt. I think it's so when I come to put the body back on, I've got the option of slacking that bolt off, so I've got some movement in this to get it in right. But that's okay. We'll cross that bridge closer to the time. I think next we'll start putting the tow bar back together. Probably can't see it, but I did put a scratch mark in one of these, so I know what size they came off of. And then okay, so the next little job is that fuel tank bracket. It's actually meant to look like that. So that's our next little job. Replace that. It's I mean, it's still there, but there's no strength left on it. So just try and work out. I should probably put something underneath the tank before I try and snap this bolt off. I'm hoping it's just a bolt on bolt off job, so I'm hoping it'll unbolt. Otherwise I might try and get some squirty oil up inside, try and soak it for a minute. So it might look like a bit of a bodge, but to help support the tank before I drop this bracket off, I've wedged a couple of tyres underneath. So that should hold it up nicely. There's not too much diesel in that tank. I think maybe a quarter of a tank according to the gauge. So it's not too bad. I'll see about snapping that bolt off now and see how we get on. I'm expecting this to snap, to be honest with you. Might have to wedge something up in there. It's just bending around, isn't it? Oh, I'll tell you what. If I go right round here, I'll probably just cut that off, can't I? Yeah. Just about to cut that now, shouldn't I? Ironically, that started undoing now. I wasn't expecting that, it started unbolting now. Good. I was not expecting that to come undone. I mean, I did have to cut into it a fair bit. Right, what sort of bolt for that do you think? What's that, 14, 15 maybe? Oh. Oh dear. Oh dear, that's a bit more welding. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. That's yeah. I think I might have to jack out, take this wheel off so I can get onto it properly. I think I'm going to have to do some more welding. Ooh, it's on there. That has not been off for quite a while. I'm not gonna lie, this is a little bit of an issue. This is a little bit of an issue. Trying to work out the best way of doing this. Where's that new bracket? There it is. So that would normally sit somewhere like that, and that would bolt onto that. Right, okay. I've also got, I don't know how we're going to see this, but up under here, I have, if I can get my torch somewhere near right, got a bloody grey big hole in the bottom of the chassis, which I was not expecting, to be honest. Quite surprised about that. So trying to work out the best way of dealing with that. What I might even end up doing, I might cut the remainder of this bit off so I can get a proper patch on that, and then weld this on, build it back up. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that, to be honest. see this a bit better. Right, so apologies, we're back. You may have noticed we're back in the deep dark hole that I usually just park this truck in and leave it. The reason being, this bracket is actually mounted in two places, under the chassis and up on the inside of the chassis rail. Now, I did start to try to undo the inside bolt on the chassis rail with just an ordinary spanner, but of course, sure enough, I started rounding the bolt off. So things started getting a bit more dramatic in the respect that to get myself the access that I needed to get onto the bolt properly, I've actually dropped the tank down. It's not too obvious because I've tried not to drop it too far, but the tank is actually dropped down. Now I've undone both ends for the fuel tank strap, front and back, so I was able to get onto the bolt that way. Unfortunately, it still wasn't quite good enough, so I ended up getting a bit more desperate, and I ended up welding my socket onto the bolt. That was the only way I could get the thing off. You know, if I come down here, slightly better light here. But yeah, it was literally all that happens. The bolt just rounded right off. No matter what socket I tried to wedge on there, it's just rusted and just fell a bit. So dragged the welder out, welded the socket onto it, and I was finally able to get it out that way. But yeah, it's not very pretty, I'm not gonna lie. It's a great big gash up in there now. But now that bolt is out, depending on what the thread size is, it's fine thread, I won't have anything like that. I'll have to try and find a fine threaded bolt. I should now be able to get the new bracket bolted in, so I can see exactly where I've got to weld up and how it needs to sit. So that'll be the next job. You can see that other hole a little bit clearer now. But yeah, it's a shame about that. It was quite plain sailing up until that point, but unfortunately these things do happen. So I just had a massive bit of luck. I came over to my table of spare parts, or in other words, a table of shit. And the very first bolt I picked up, and I said I wouldn't have a fine threaded bolt, was actually the right bolt. I actually had a couple of them. It's 5 miles too long, so I've just cut it down to size. So now I can at least bolt that bracket into place, so I can see exactly where I need to build the chassis back up to. So I think I've got a plan of action as to how I'm going to deal with that hole in the chassis. So over here I've got some old metal. They're old cross members from a trailer I repaired I did some years ago. So I've dug out a cross member, and I was going to cut that to length, probably rip it down one side or somewhere near the centre, so I can get it the right width, and then I'm hoping that should then plug the hole, and then it will also give me a nice little drop down, so I can make a little angle bracket to put the fuel tank bracket back onto. I will clean this all up as well before I fit it. You may have noticed it's suddenly a lot brighter in that corner. That's because I got fed up working in a deep dark corner, and I found a light in amongst all the other stuff. So I've just done a temporary rig up there just to give me or to give us some better light down here, so I can actually see what I'm doing. So yeah. so far. That's probably the most awkward bit. That's what I had to drop the fuel tank for, so I'm actually quite happy with how it's come out so far. I managed to weld it without burning any holes through the chassis, so it's always a good sign. Right, so we're about there for that repair, and whilst I had the welder out there was a small hole there. I think I pointed out earlier, but I've just filled that up as well. It's kind of better than I was expecting. The welding on the underside isn't too pretty, but never mind. But no, I'm quite happy with that. So now I'm going to go over it with a wire wheel again and paint the underside of this chassis leg, and then I'll have to see about jacking the other side up. Well, put the tank back on first, and then jack the other side up and take the wheel off and do the same with the other side. Okay, so this is my plan for finalising the fuel tank bracket so I can get it bolted back in. This is actually an L-shaped bracket I've just cut out, spot welded a nut onto it, and then the idea being I can just run a weld around it, run a weld around this bit, and then that should be about it then. I can actually get the fuel tank fitted back on. We can move to the other side. Okay, that's about how I want it. That's pretty much exactly how I wanted it, so I'm quite happy with that. I'm just going to let it cool down for a moment and then put a coat of paint on it and then see about putting this fuel tank back up. Okay, so the fuel tank's back in. It's not too bad a job getting the fuel tank out and in. You've literally got two straps, a bolt on one end and a pin on the other. Unfortunately, if you're going to drop it onto a set of tyres like I did, there is enough space, there's enough give in the fuel lines to drop it down onto a set of tyres to give yourself enough room to work around it. Getting it back up is a bit more tricky. I managed to get the front strapping okay, but the rear strap was a bit more tricky. I struggled with getting this pin in over here, and I ended up having to weld a bolt onto it in the end because I didn't have enough hands to lift the strap up, get it in the right position and get the pin in. So I cheated a bit and just welded a bolt onto it to hold it in place whilst I got the pin in. So now we're on to this side, and I've got a bit more welding. I've got some welding down behind that shock exhaust to do, which I probably should have done before I welded the shock back into place. And I'm going to take a ballpoint hammer and just hit down in that corner, because I think that might be another hole. I'm hoping once that's done, that might be the last bit of welding. I don't want to jinx it. I'm hoping that might be the last bit of welding I've got to do on the chassis, and I can finish painting it. And yeah, that'll be about it. Yeah, that's another hole, all right. That's okay. So that should go right through. Yeah. Right, well, I'll see about cutting the patch out, clean that up, cut a patch out for these, and get that welded in. Right, okay, so like everything on this truck so far, this side of the chassis turned out to be worse than I was hoping it would be. So I had a hole on this side which I knew about, so I've made, I don't know how clear that is, I've made a plate to go over that, I made a plate to go over this side that I put the hammer through a moment ago, but also the bottom's completely rotten, so I'm just in the process of cutting out some more of my old trailer cross member, so I can completely box this in and weld it up. But to be fair, I've been having a good look around the rest of the chassis leg, and this looks like it could possibly be the last bit of welding, although there's a tiny bit up in there to do. But I can just fill that in with a bit of weld. I'm not going to cut anything out for that. So yeah. Right, okay, so we're about there for at least getting everything cut and tacked into place. So I've managed to pretty much box it all in. And if I come around this side, I'll also run right up on the underside there. That's going to be the most awkward bit, trying to get the welder into there. And then obviously I've got that first patch. So now, just a case of actually welding it all together now and have cooked that up. Right, we're about there now. I'm actually really happy with how it's come out. I managed to get that welded in quite nicely. Even the awkward bit by the shock absorber, I managed to get that welded in quite nicely. So let me just get underneath it. Oh. So yeah, I'm really quite happy with that. So just a case of painting it now. And yeah, I've got a little holding exhaust I just found, but that'd be another day. Just want to concentrate on the chassis first, so yeah. And I've also quickly welded that tiny little hole up there. So now it's just a case of de-dusting and giving it a final coat on this side, and that'll be about it then. Right, okay, so we're all about done on here now. It's been quite a lengthy process, as you might have been able to tell from the length of time it was since I last released a video on here. It's not just the Hilux, I must add. I did also do some work to the van, which is buried down the far front there. Over the winter, I replaced a rotten wheel arch, which I didn't even bother filming. But no, this is all about done now. I can start looking for a replacement body. I don't want to spend any time on that whatsoever. It's absolutely rotten. It's no good to man nor beast. So I'm going to look for, I really fancy like a drop side body, or like I don't know if you call them tray backs or a ute style. So I'll start having a poke around, see if I can find something. In terms of cost, I've probably spent maybe 140 odd quid on this, give or take. I should have it written down somewhere. So the main costs were fuel filler neck, front mounting brackets, and come down here, this fuel tank bracket, which is probably the most expensive single item that I brought for. It's quite a unique shape. They're the only bits I brought. The rest of it I managed to bodge together to save some money. Probably most notably would be the shock absorber top mounts, and probably even the shock absorber themselves. But yeah, it was quite a lot more involved than I was anticipating. Had I known how much work was going to be involved and how bad it actually was, I may not have even bothered taking the job on. I may have just let it go. But it was one of these things, once I got into it, I thought I might as well keep plodding on, and that's where I've gotten to. I am aware but there is a recall on Hilux chassis, and I did look into it for this one, but this one falls outside of the spectrum. It's too old, basically. So that's why I end up persisting with this chassis. Otherwise I would have quite happily have tried my luck and tried to get a replacement out of Toyota, but in all fairness, 298,000, you really can't complain. So yeah, it's probably about it. I hope you're all keeping well. I hope you found it interesting. Hope you have a good weekend, and I'll see you in the next one.